Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the special Tesla Roadster version of our podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
The picture behind us is from a Hagerty article, which we'll talk about. It's the main theme today. It looks like Hagerty may have noticed that the Tesla Roadsters are in somewhat of a glut right now.
It may.
And to kick that off, we've got a picture here to throw up. Jesse, it's VIN 518 British Racing Green Roadster, which just sold on Bring a Trailer July 30th, 2024. We were watching this carefully, and if you notice, the final sale price of this was $62,000. Man, that's like $10,000, $15,000 below where it should have sold, easily. Now, it was a high-mileage Roadster. Okay, all right, I get that. But you can't use mileage to devalue an electric vehicle. Yeah, it has some bearing, but all the Roadsters need suspension work these days. It doesn't matter what kind of mileage they've been sitting. The rubber bushings are drying up and cracking.
Right.
The shocks, the oil. So at 90,000 miles, applying ICE rules to valuation was an incorrect parameter to attach to this car. Now, granted, there's a plus and minus here. Somebody got a hell of a deal on this car.
They sure did. Well, I mean, you look at this car doesn't have a traditional transmission at all, so you don't have the transmission issues. An electric motor is an electromagnet. There are no parts that are touching one another. Therefore, there is no lubricant needed. Therefore, there is no wear in the motor over miles. So everything having to do with the ICE engine, we were talking about that before the show.
Bearings, rings, piston, exhaust, fuel delivery, gaskets.
None of that applies here. And so the whole powertrain thing, that just doesn't wear. And then you've got the regenerative braking, which occurs naturally through the electric motor. And that means that the braking system doesn't get the same wear and tear either. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you there. Miles simply don't apply the same way.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and go further and say auctions for Tesla Roadsters are not a great way to sell a car like this. You've got a 7-day limit. The seller can't talk to the owner directly. And you've got in this case, no reserve. So this thing hits 62,000. The owner's going, oh, my God, what happened, They're and they have to sell.
Well, like you say, somebody got a steal on an absolutely gorgeous Tesla Roadster.
And yeah, British Racing Green is an acquired taste. It's not my first choice in colors, but a lot of people love this color, especially with those tan seats. So this probably plays into the article that was issued by Hagerty. But before we get there, let's take a look at another one that's percolating on Bring a Trailer right now. Actually, it is a signature car, and it's twilight blue like this one in the picture. That one has a New York license plate, by the way. Got a picture here, Jesse, and it is. Well, I thought I had a picture. My apologies.
Jesse will have a picture in a minute. Let me just.
If you go to Bring a Trailer, just look at the latest 2008 Tesla Roadster, and I'll tell everybody about what this car is. It is, of course, a Signature 100 car, Signature 48. The current bid on it is $75,000. It ends tomorrow, I believe. It's got 1 day to go. This car has actually been here twice, and it has had extensive work done. This particular owner realized that they had a collectible car. They spared no expense, and there were a number of improvements made to the car. In fact, in the auction, they have a copy of our invoice, and there's our picture, Signature 48.
Yeah, I put it up there as Signature 48 so we can see it.
It has a complete, full power electronics rebuild. That is changing every wear component, resolving engineering issues. We don't know of anybody that does that extensive a PEM rebuild. It's almost $6,000 for just that PEM rebuild. So it's got a new lease on life. The battery was gone through completely. The pop rivets were replaced. And like the first car that we saw, which, by the way, had a CAC of 133. And today, that's not bad. The ones that are, questionable are the ones below 100, and there are some of those as well. But after, well, they've been around since 2008. After 16, 17 years, these batteries are still going strong in most cars. I don't have the CAC for VIN48. It's in our log file. I should have pulled that before I came to the show here. But it did charge to 157, I believe, the last time I was here in February, which is a good, healthy, standard mode charge level. And there was about $25,000, $26,000 worth of work put into this car in February of this year, including AC recharge and service. Switch pack was rebuilt and repaired. The switch pack is that little electronic module. PPF was removed, new PPF applied. The headlights were converted, and the clouding, which is oftentimes or peeling, was completely resolved. Level 1 paint correction before the PPF install. All of the thermal management was replaced. The fans, the pumps. And so the car really doesn't need much at this point in time. A question was asked, is this car going to have problems in the heat? Excuse me. And the simple answer there is, with the thermal management upgrades that we did, no, especially up in the Bay Area where this question was asked. The 1.5s are a bit finicky when it comes to triple-digit temperatures. You'll go into power limit mode. It's just the nature of the design. But it depends on where it gets sold. Any of the 1.5s, and that's VINs 500 on down to VIN 1, are going to have some sort of issues in triple-digit temperatures. And what I mean by triple-digit is, here, it was 115 Sunday.
Yes.
So, yeah, the cars all seem to struggle there, even the 2.0s. So that's the story on this car. It has 1 day to go, and there aren't that many signature cars in production. There were 100, and some have been lost, so this is going to be one of those rare cars, and it'd be interesting to see where this ends up on Bring a Trailer. Considering
this car's pedigree, as well as all the work that's been done to restore it to like new condition, $75,000 is way too low.
Yeah, at this point especially, yeah. But again, a plug for the Tesla Roadster matchmaking site. There is no time limit. The listings are live until the car is sold. We allow the sellers to talk to the buyers. We're the Tinder of the Roadster world, and you guys go out on dates, and you cavort, and you make your best deal. We're there to support, only with tech support, free escrow service, and even transport assistance if you choose or if you need it. But it's a very gentle way to sell a Roadster, and you end up making friends along the way. You get to talk to the various potential buyers, and the sellers are always accessible to anyone interested in the car. And then, of course, if it's been through our service center, the service history, which could be very important to you, like with VIN48. We can run through every single one of those and describe to you what was done and why it was done and how this is going to help the car survive in the future. Those are all things that are not available with auctions.
True.
All right. So, another issue came up here this last week. Someone was trying to get their Roadster into a service center, and 4 months had gone by. And anyway, he asked us, he said, "Do I need an appointment to bring you a Roadster?" Well, the simple answer is absolutely not. All Roadsters can come in instantly if the owner chooses. Where we do have a backlog is in the sexy vehicles, and we give Roadsters preference. They're a high priority.
Right.
Especially with the type of failures that we often see in Roadsters. They're time sensitive. There's one right now in Texas. He's got a resistive cell. A resistive cell does not get better. It gets worse. And as it gets worse, it eventually drains the other 68 cells in a brick. And if it goes low enough, below 2 volts, and long enough, then you have to change the sheet. And sheets are not in production. We have to wait for donor cars, in other words, cadavers, to pull them from. So they are time sensitive, and getting a Roadster in as quickly as possible is always in the owner's best interest because it reduces the amount of eventual maintenance that car is going to need and service costs. So our answer to this customer was no. We'll pick it up tomorrow if you like. We're at the mercy, of course, sometimes of transporters, so we try to make that as fast as possible. All right, we've got a question coming in here. Instagram, Miss June is joining us, 117. She says, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to have you on.
Yeah. So the Hagerty article, let's talk about that. The headline went something like this: 5 rides that stumbled last quarter. And the picture that they used for their article was none other than the Tesla Roadster that you see there. Twilight blue with New York license plates. They said that the 2008 to 2011 Tesla Roadsters over the last quarter lost 9%. I'm scratching my head saying, they never contacted us. We sell more Roadsters than anyone on the planet. Where did they get their data from? Did they fact check this? And so those kind of statistics are suspect. And it's not like we're hard to find. Google Tesla Roadster at any point in time, and we're all over that. We're usually the first listing. The Tesla Roadster matchmaking site is highly visible. So again, my advice to journalists is do your research, do your fact checking, and don't regurgitate. There was a complaint the other day about Supercar Blondie regurgitating something about the Solo, and the CEO of Solo chewed them out badly on social media, saying, what's wrong with you guys? Don't you do any fact checking? Do you just read somebody else's article and regurgitate what you read without ever even considering that it may not be real or true? I'm starting to sound like Trump, aren't I, with the fake news?
Well, a little bit, a little bit.
So the article goes something like this. Regardless of how you feel about EVs or their place as interesting or collectible cars, the original Tesla Roadster holds an important place in this development and trajectory of the EV and in the automobile world in general. This was the first serial production car that used lithium-ion batteries, after all, as well as the first production EV to achieve a rated range of 244 miles. And all the while being able to hit 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Remember, the base Roadster is 3.9 seconds. The Sport Roadster is 3.7 seconds, 0.2 of a second faster. So they say, with the thrill through the corners and a thrill through the corners on the racetrack, thanks to his Lotus Elise-derived underpinnings, while much of this is expected performance of EVs today, this was a technical marvel in the year 2000.
Yes, it was.
It was actually 2008, of course, when the Roadster was first released, but, their article doesn't, it's not highly accurate in all categories, it turns out. So while the average reader may find it a bit strange, there are EV collectors out there. Not in our world. We see a lot of EV collectors. But,
yeah, I don't think that's strange at all.
Yeah. And given its significance, the Tesla Roadster is a must-have for them. That's partly why the Tesla experienced a gradual lift in values over the last few years. And we saw that in 2021. They went from $50,000 on up to over $100,000 within a year and a half or two.
You think that's gradual?
Pretty rapid, actually, if you think about it, doubling. Yeah.
And actually, if I recall correctly, from October of 2020 to November of 2021, it went from just over 40,000 to 115, almost triple.
And we think we played a part in that because we started the Roadster matchmaking site around that time. And invariably, when people would come to us to sell their Roadster, they would ask us for valuation advice.
Right.
Where should I list it? And whenever anybody asks me that, I say, look, everybody likes a bargain. you start a little higher than your strike price, and then both of you are happy at some point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we began to see the prices edge up. So they say that more recently, however, Tesla Roadsters haven't been selling as well and dropped to a median number 2 value of $107,000. Well, there's the first error. They're selling, but they're selling lower because there's so many more of them.
Right.
So John Wiley, Director of Valuation Analytics, never heard of him, he observed that there were 4 recent sales of the Tesla Roadster spanning 2008 to 2011 model years, with mileage ranging from 6,000 to 60,000, all sold below condition appropriate value.
Okay, I got to stop you
Go
here.
for it.
Okay, I'm just reading this as you are. And I'm thinking, hold on a second. There's only 4?
4 Roadsters makes it a lot. Yeah.
I think we've sold more than 4 in the same time that they're talking about it all by ourselves with the Tesla matchmaking service.
Right. Well, Hagerty, shame on you. You didn't do your research. Next time, come to us. We're valuation experts. We'll certainly weigh in and collect a few opinions before you publish from one source. So they say, he continues now, perhaps as the appeal of new EVs loses some charge, the original Tesla Roadster is a bit less appealing to enthusiasts.
Maybe he needs to check a little more about why people are selling Roadsters.
Totally, yes.
I mean, we've said so many times, people who bought Roadsters from 2008 to 2011 tended to be in an age demographic of older but not yet retired, with a good amount of disposable income, enough disposable income that they could afford to drop $150,000 on a car, knowing full well that that car might not have support in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it does is just bonus to them. Well, those people in their late 50s and early 60s then are now the people who are in their early 70s to mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And they just can't get in and out of the car. That's what we hear most often.
I find it interesting, too, that the article speculates what could be causing this, and it could be the broader downturn in EV sales. And, it's no mystery to us. One of the things that we ask every single person that lists a car with us is people like backstories. They want to know when you bought it, why you bought it, how much you've enjoyed it. Does it have any provenance? Was it celebrity owned? Did Elon sign your bill of sale? Any of those things are important. And invariably, we always ask, why are you selling it? And oftentimes that information, the majority of times, it's in the listing. And I never saw anybody that said, well, I'm selling it because there's a downturn in EV sales overall.
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
So again, journalists, do your homework, Google it if you have to, and we're more than anxious to answer any questions regarding Tesla Roadsters, because that's what Gruber Motors specializes in and has had a decade of experience in. All right.
We have a comment up here, a greeting from Peter Seelan. Good evening, Mr. Gruber and Mr. Scheffner.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much
Peter.
for joining us. You can, if you wish, to put the German spelling of the Scheffner name. You can, I Americanize it and I call it Schaffner, but
Yeah.
we can put an umlaut above that A, and that would be then the correct pronunciation for my last name.
Schaffner, yeah. And in the name that just came through, the first name, Peter, Pieter, that indicates to me that it's also Scandinavian or from the Netherlands.
Yes.
That's how Peter is spelled there.
So
Well,
glad
thanks for
to have
joining
you.
us. Yes, yeah. So, getting back to the Roadster community and the heat problems with some of the Roadsters. So the question that was posed for VIN48 was, will this survive in a warm climate? Yes, absolutely. It's been to Phoenix a number of times, and I've got VIN number 5, for example, which is also a 1.5. And they thrive. They are able to be driven. You may get some power limit when it's 115 outside and you're trying to run your air conditioning, and but The other thing that's remarkable about these cars, which not too many people talk about, the original design criteria and specification for the Tesla Roadster multi-cell lithium-ion 18650 battery pack was 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
J.B. Strobel freely admits that, and he told me 12 years after the creation of the car that they were surprised that it was going 12 years at that time. He has two of them, actually.
Right.
He actually owns the first ESS pack in a Roadster, and at that time it was still driving. What's amazing is that here, 16, 17 years later, they are still going strong. Many of the original legacy battery packs. If they've been stressed, bricked pretty hard, then you begin to see some lingering problems at times. But the original legacy battery packs, like VIN number 5, for example, it's got a CAC of 140 something, 43, I think, and it charges to 154 every single night that I charge it in standard mode. One of our customers up in Vegas owns VIN 13.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. You get some power limiting when you're driving, and it's 110 plus, but it charges well. It's the original battery pack, and I think he's getting 154 miles. That here somewhere. So the batteries are surviving. We don't know how long they're going to survive. There will be an end-of-life event at some point, but so far we're not seeing that with the original legacy battery packs.
Well, the only comparable lithium-ion battery usage at the time that the Roadsters were manufactured was laptop batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, if a laptop battery lasted between 3 and 5 years, you would consider, yeah, you've got a pretty good battery. You're lucky that it lasted as long as it did. But that's, of course, because people run their laptops from 100% down to 0, back to 100, down to 0, back to... They don't have the kind of battery management that the cars had.
Yep.
We don't know how long they're going to last.
And no thermal management.
There was no thermal management.
A cell phone, yeah.
Yeah.
You leave it out in the sun on your dash, you've just cooked those batteries, you know?
Yeah.
That's where the Roadster shines. It has a very sophisticated thermal management system. So much so that if you're trying to use your AC and it's hot outside, the firmware decides, you know what, the occupants are not as important as that battery, and your AC will turn off. And it favors the battery at that point in time. And I believe that the reason that these legacy packs have been surviving so long is because of that sophisticated thermal management system in the Tesla Roadster, designed by the early, engineers.
Kudos to those engineers. I agree with you totally, and I will testify that it's not just the Roadster that thinks that its batteries are more important than its human occupants.
Right. So speaking of Roadsters selling, we've got another picture here to pop up. Jesse, if you can put up Teacup VP24. I've got one shot of that, two of them actually, yeah. So there was a Tesla Roadster that came available for sale. Validation prototype number 24. Validation prototypes are vital for safety testing, which is performed throughout the pre-production and validation phases of a car manufacturer building a car. The testing is called Failure Mode Effect Analysis, FMEA. Of course, there had to be an acronym there. During it, automotive prototypes are placed through different scenarios and subjected to extreme conditions to identify any problems that could hamper the use of the product or cause safety concerns to consumers. Well, so the manufacturing validation build process is intended to prepare the production lines for the final tooling, production tooling. Sometimes these cars have unusual construction elements. Instead of a metal bracket, there may be a handcrafted bracket or something.
Sure.
And all of that, though, adds value to the vehicle's provenance and its collectability. So this particular car, VP24, fully operational, in excellent condition, well taken care of by a well-known Tesla owner, came up for sale. And its previous life was, of course, the validation prototype at Tesla. which technically those cars were not supposed to escape or be sold. So the fact that one escaped was remarkable. But it was also then used as a promotion for a company called Ashley that makes fine china. And they actually put the car on some cups. We've got another picture here, Jesse, teacup VP24-2, to demonstrate the incredible strength of this teacup china. And the next picture you'll see here, you'll see this 2,700-pound car sitting on 4 china cups that this company makes. So it has an additional boost of provenance in that it was widely promoted at the time for this particular company.
Sure.
So it was rare in a number of categories. So the prospective buyer called me, and this sold off of our Roadster matchmaking site, and it actually sold to one of the pre-qualified Tesla Roadster owners or buyers that we have on our list. If you list the car with us, there are almost 500 now pre-qualified buyers that we've collected that are looking for very specific Roadsters, and that group gets a preliminary look at whatever we have listed. 24 hours later, we then put it out on social media. And oftentimes, the cars sell before they even hit social media, especially if it's a unique car like this. So the prospective buyer, he sent me an email and he said, "Pete, this seems super rare. Can you give me any additional thoughts?" My answer was, it is rare. In fact, the VPs were technically not allowed to be sold. Financial stress at the time, however, dictated survival was far more important than rule following, and a few escaped. Even engineering prototypes, EPs, which were typically beat to death with a variety of testing, with some being sent to the scrap heap, like EP and VP crash test vehicles. Now, obviously, if you're going to crash test a car, yeah, you could piece it back together. I think collision shops do that. But with severe enough damage, that's probably not a good option. So the ones that did survive, that went through a lower level of destructive testing, that are in the field, in my opinion, are highly collectible. So anyway, that one sold. VP24 now is going to new ownership. And we're very proud that we were able to help facilitate that. Looks like we've got a question. Have we talked about the whistling diesel Cybertruck durability test? Yeah, actually, we talked about that in the last podcast.
Yeah. And that was from Lowriderman on TikTok. Jesse was telling us about that test in our last podcast, and jumping Cybertrucks 10 feet in the air and all kinds of fun stuff. And then talking about how the Cybertruck is falling apart.
And we were speculating that the risk management team at Tesla and the legal team got together and they're writing whole new disclaimers during their purchase agreements. All right, one of the other Tesla Roadster owners, Eric Robertson in Texas, owns VIN 744. He posts, "There's a hurricane hitting the Texas coast on Monday, so I figured I'd get the cars indoors. Went to turn on VIN 744 and nothing. Ended up putting it in tow mode and pushing it in the garage. Now I got to figure out what's wrong." He hadn't driven it in 3 months, and he assumed a number of things. Did the 12 volts die? Did the ignition switch go bad? He took that apart. The main pack was still charging, and it looked healthy. He pulled logs. Now, he's a very knowledgeable guy. He's actually the only owner I know that did his own Tesla Roadster battery pull. And again, as I pointed out before, there's a healthy respect for anybody that tackles anything like that. That's a 1,000-pound battery pack that you take out of a Roadster. He checked all the fuses, in the passenger side waterfall, bad switch pack. He thought he's out of ideas. Finally, he took his dash off. And we've got a picture here, Jesse. It's VIN 744. And it became crystal clear to us what his issue was. And as soon as that picture pops up, we'll let you guys chime in. You see the wires that are chewed through there?
I do, especially you look at the yellow wire as it's just coming out of that connector. There's a big chew point there.
Yeah.
Got the brown wire that's in 2 pieces, and of course the yellow wire is chewed off as well. So yeah, that's a problem.
Term that comes to mind is soy insulation. It smelled edible and looked edible, and they didn't stop with just the insulation. They decided to try the copper and then gave up, apparently.
They always do. They always do.
So the lesson here is, yes, if you've got strange problems in your Roadster, we see that often with the shift, capability. Rodents do like to take up residence in your home, and the early clue that that Eric gave was it sat outside for 3 months.
Yep.
The suggestion we have, obviously, if it's going to sit outside, make sure that you cover it. Roasters are not waterproof. And if you're concerned about rodents, one of the things that we did just recently was we had extensive rodent damage in a Roadster. Everything got fixed, but then the owner said, what's my recourse? How do I prevent this? We found devices, not that expensive. You can go to Amazon. They're rodent eliminators, basically, and they emit high-frequency sounds that you or I can't hear. Maybe your dog can, but it's an annoying sound, apparently sufficiently to where the rodent either thinks that that's a Bengal tiger making noise, or it doesn't like the noise and it won't take up habitation in your vehicle. So we recommend putting those into the car. They run off 12 volts. They draw very little current. We carefully analyze that. And your Roadster is certainly capable of handling a 12-volt device like that.
The thought just occurred to me, if you park that Roadster in your garage and you have dogs, you're going to be upsetting your dogs all day long.
Probably, yes. Or you might want to buy one and try it first. I think they were around a $30 range.
Oh, yeah.
We put 2 of them into this particular car. But yeah, rodents is becoming a big problem. In fact, I was test driving one earlier in the week, end of last week. And I had to turn on the AC because that was a 112, 113 degree day. And the car began smelling like a barn. So I went back to the guys and I said, hey, what's going on with the car? What'd you guys do? And they said, well, we found rodent damage and we repaired the wiring harnesses. And then there were some other issues and all that. There's a heater box that's not quite accessible underneath the hood vanes. And apparently the rodents had migrated into that heater box because what I was smelling was definitely organic decay.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to open that Roadster back up and get rid of some of that organic stuff that's in that heater box. But it is becoming more prevalent and more common to see rodent damage in the Roadster. So we suggest taking proactive measures, whether that's getting a barn cat, whether that's getting these electronic devices, or making sure that your storage is adequate to where, you don't have this type of problem. All right. We have another picture, and it is in my Photoshop file. Raphael Demestri, if you remember, with VIN507, was gracious enough to going around the world a second time in his Roadster to come to our service center, get some upgrades done, and get his ESS pack replaced. This was the brick Roadster that was allowed to get bricked in a Munich museum. He's on his second trip around the world, actually third, because he's done it twice with the Roadster now, and this time with the original Model S that went around the world the first time. And that image is in there now, Jesse. We've got the folks standing in front of Gruber Motor Company.
Yeah, it's called Raphael.
So this time, it wasn't just Raphael. It turns out there was a family from Czechoslovakia that decided to join Raphael in a Model 3 and also go around the world. They hit the eastern seaboard. The Delaware Tesla Club is always very gracious and hospitable. Viviana Van Derlen is part of that group. They spent time with that group. Then they went to visit Henry Sharp. And I realized there's a picture on Facebook, by the way, those of you interested. It was the first time I saw what Henry Sharp looks like. But it turns out Raphael and his entourage spent time with Henry and his family. The other couple is Zendek Martinek and Hannah Martinkova. And then, of course, Raphael Demestri to the left there, and their 3 children. From our service center, they ended up going to San Diego, and I highly recommend that they go to La Jolla. I think the kids would love to see the seals
Oh,
on the
yeah.
beaches there, and get up close and personal. So we were very honored to have this group join us, take a tour of the facility. And those of you that watch our YouTube shorts and our YouTube videos will be posting quite a bit of footage from this, as are the people that were here already beginning to post some things about their visit to our service center. The thing that most impressed me was the camaraderie and the generosity of the Tesla Roadster community, or the Tesla community in general. Wherever these folks went, they were received with open arms, and recognizing that this was again a historic trip, and just like Tesla Takeover, both Austria and the one out in San Luis Obispo just a couple weeks ago, it is a very tight-knit community, which makes it all rewarding.
What a remarkable experience for those children as well. They're going to get to see things in this world that many of us as adults will never see.
Oh, it's building memories that will last a lifetime,
Yeah.
undoubtedly.
On TikTok, Lowrider Man has another question for us. He says, what was the average cost of a Roadster originally?
Good question. They miscalculated everything, by the way, and it's one of the reasons that they were on the verge of bankruptcy. But the low price was $107,000, and I think the highest optioned Roadster that we saw was a electric blue, had full carbon fiber treatment. It was a sport Roadster, and I think the build sheet and sticker on that, which was still in the car, was around $150,000 or so.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. All right. One of the Tesla Roadster owners in Norway actually had an issue trying to get insurance for his Tesla Roadster. And they were very concerned about the method of charging. He has a TS70 Clipper Creek wall charger, and which is, of course, is a Tesla proprietary charge type source. It's good for 70 amps, which is rapid charge, and it's an extraordinarily well-built product. We service these, and we see very few of them, and when we do, it's usually minor repairs. It turns out that the insurance company would not accept this charger, and they wanted a certain certification called 61851-1 certification, which has to do with the type of communication between the charger and the car. And of course, from a risk management standpoint, they want to make sure that if the car is saying, I'm getting too much charge, I'm overheating, whatever, the charger is able to shut down.
Sure.
It turns out that he finally got information. We sent him some information as well that shows that the original Clipper Creek TS70 charger does meet CE certification under various testing scenarios. And we have that document now. So if anyone else runs into this problem where your insurance company requires some additional documentation to allow you to use that charger, we can help with that, because the customer was kind enough, his name is Ola Lindgren from Norway, to send us that documentation, so we now have it on file for anybody that needs it. Okay. Well, I think we're coming to a close here with our Tesla Roadster podcast. And I'm Pete Gruber. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Tesla Roadster podcast.
Take care.